It's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu. Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Let's whoop it up for these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the cheering going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Take a look back in time and recollect local history at this month's Sylvan Story presentation. Learn about Sylvan Lake's illustrious past from the lovely Helen Jane Peters as she discusses everything she can about Whitfield School's teacher and principal, Mr. Glenn Husted, and the letters he'd write to soldiers fighting in World War II. Sylvan Story. Drop by at 6:30 p.m. Thursday, November 10th at the Sylvan Lake Community Center.
Can I ask you a question? Why do you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
I don't like getting sick. The virus will die. It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer. Because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine to keep safe and strong. Be happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine. I'm feeling good.
Let's savor these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu. Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Let's whoop it up for these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the cheering going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Take a look back in time and recollect local history at this month's Sylvan Story presentation. Learn about Sylvan Lake's illustrious past from the lovely Helen Jane Peters as she discusses everything she can about Whitfield School's teacher and principal, Mr. Glenn Husted, and the letters he'd write to soldiers fighting in World War II. Sylvan Story. Drop by at 6:30 p.m. Thursday, November 10th at the Sylvan Lake Community Center.
Can I ask you a question? Why do you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
I don't like getting sick. The virus will die. It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer. Because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine to keep safe and strong. Be like happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine. I'm feeling good.
Let's savor these moments. Made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
You're listening to your radio homes for the Megacast, 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. Today's edition of the Megacast begins now. Welcome to the Megacast, our live local daily TV, radio, and streaming show looking into all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Today we'll be talking to a number of people about topics of interest and importance to Michiganders just like you. Let's begin with what's making headlines today on CivicCenterTV.com's local news page. Our top story comes from Emma Stein at the Detroit Free Press as we get an update on Michigan's COVID-19 metrics. Michigan added just under 10,000 new COVID-19 cases over the past week, as well as 168 deaths, with a return of 10.3% of all COVID-19 tests that were reported to the state coming back positive. As for this week's metrics, the fatality rate from COVID-19 in the state, as of this week's metrics, that stands at 1.4%. Just a quick update on COVID-19 information on our website, CivicCenterTV.com. On our local news page, you can also get updates directly from the CDC, the MDHHS, and the Oakland County Health Division at the top of the page, too, and stay up to date each and every day with new information and news regarding COVID-19 locally, statewide, and federally. Also making headlines today from Robin Erb and Stella Yu at Bridge, Michigan. Following the passing of Proposal 3 on Tuesday's midterm election, Michigan has legalized abortion and expanded reproductive health care across the state. The passed proposal puts these provisions directly into the state's constitution, making them the law of the land and eliminating the precedent for the blocked 1931 law that without court intervention would have become the law of the land following the U.S. Supreme Court's reversal of Roe versus Wade. The law does not, however, take effect right away. 45 days from the election, it will officially become law, making December 24th the day that it enters the state constitution. This article goes to great lengths answering many questions surrounding the passing of Proposal 3 and where this legislation enacted by the electorate of the state into the state constitution goes from here. First question it goes into, can it be reversed? Yes, but it would not be an easy feat to complete, requiring the electorate once again to pass a ballot proposal that in this case would reverse the decision. So basically, you're going to have to flip the opinion of the state's voters in order to reverse Proposal 3 from 2022 in a future election, and then have that reversal be reflected in the final tally of the votes on that particular day in that particular election in order to remove this or repeal this from the state constitution. So another question, what happens next in terms of the other laws that this may impact? Now that it's part of the state constitution, parts of other laws regarding reproductive health, regarding abortion as well, may become unconstitutional here in the state of Michigan. So the courts will have to make some decisions in that regard, as over 40 laws across the state may potentially be impacted by this passing of the proposal in this midterm election. That would, however, only come about as these laws are challenged in the courts, with reference being made to Proposal 3 as that's added to the state constitution. Lastly, what about those protesters outside abortion clinics across the state that we've seen since the repeal of Roe versus Wade, and especially during the campaign, both for the petitioning to get Proposal 3 on the ballot, as well as to pass Proposal 3 or deny Proposal 3 leading up to the 2022 midterms. Unfortunately, for those at the clinics, those protesters may not be going away, said Sandy Weathers, campaign manager for the Ann Arbor chapter of 40 Days for Life 365. Quote, "It's a tragic day for mothers in Michigan, but we will continue to fight, continue to pray, and continue to reach out." So from all indications, it does seem they will continue, at least in some regard, protesting abortion in the state of Michigan. Finally, making headlines today on CivicCenterTV.com's local news page from Maisha Johnson at the Detroit News. You've heard of smoke detectors. Now get ready for vape detectors coming soon to an Oakland County high school near you. Andy Malosh, the principal at Berkeley High School, sent an email to students' families on Tuesday revealing that vape sensors will be installed in all 20 of the high school's bathrooms, among concerns around the growing use of vapes among students across our local schools. The decision was also influenced by the Oakland School's technical campus, which saw a decrease in vaping in bathrooms following their installation of these detectors, as well as polling an increase in student comfort in using the bathrooms at those facilities due to the fact that there was a reduction in vaping in those areas of those schools. Said Principal Malosh in a message to the school district's families, quote, "While we realize that some of these updates may feel new and different to us, the idea that Berkeley High School works hard to create safe environments for all students is certainly not new or different. We're very proud of the fact that our students constantly push us to become better at what we do, which in turn keeps us progressing forward," and closed quote. All of those headlines today on CivicCenterTV.com's local news page, along with links to COVID-19 updates from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention at the federal level, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services statewide and locally, where we originate a broadcast in Oakland County from the Oakland County Health Division. We have a great show ahead on this Thursday edition of the Megacast. Coming up next, we'll have our weekly mental health talk with Carrie Krawick from the Birmingham Maple Clinic, plus more interesting and fun discussions all across today's program. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head on, visit michigan.gov/flu. Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Let's whoop it up for these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the cheering going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Welcome Welcome back to the Megacast, our live local daily TV, radio, and streaming show looking into all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Keefe. Learn more about the program by visiting our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you'll find more information on all of our partnering stations across the Great Lakes State, including My Michigan TV, and find all of our full shows and each individual interview on demand as well. civiccentertv.com/megacast for all of that information. It is November. November is the month where we recognize men's mental health, something that's often been kind of put to the wayside or ignored by many men across the U.S. and around the world. And joining us now to talk about men's mental health and the importance of really putting a focus on this in what's known as Movember is Carrie Krawick, a therapist at the Birmingham Maple Clinic. Carrie, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So Movember was something that began as a campaign in 2003, particularly to raise awareness of men's mental health issues. And so often we do, when we think about mental health and we think about mental health care, we don't really think about men, maybe, younger boys or teenagers, but adult men in particular have historically been much more resistant to seeking therapy or seeking any sort of mental health care and trying to be, toughing it out, manning up, so to speak, and not dealing with these issues, which of course only compound them. And so how has that changed over the years, especially recent years, given the really resurgence and a focus on mental health as a result of the pandemic?
Well, absolutely. I think, something like 6 million men meet the criteria for depression, and 19 million American adults meet the criteria for anxiety. So it's certainly a problem that's affecting men. I mean, I think one thing we can be exceptionally thankful for is that people, say, for example, professional athletes or, other celebrities have come and spoke out and used their public forum to say that they are a man and have, in fact, mental health issues. Certainly the deaths and suicides of people like Chris Cornell and Anthony Bourdain, people at the height of their careers, very successful and seemingly doing okay, are struggling. And so we are getting, more and more attention on the fact that it's a real issue, even though they're not necessarily talking about it or seeking help to the same degree other people are.
Yeah, and you mentioned, some of the notable people that have had some mental health issues, and whether they addressed them or not, they ended up losing their life as a result. And statistically, men are twice as likely as women to die by suicide, and that just puts a little bit more of an emphasis on why it's so important for men to seek these interventions if they're having some issues or having some problems, need to talk through some things, especially nowadays when mental health care is a little bit more accessible than it has been in the past, and certainly the stigma surrounding addressing your mental health has certainly reduced. But let's get to the root of the issue. What are some of the main reasons historically that we've seen as to why men have not sought mental health care when they've been in need of it?
I think like a couple of things, like you said, certainly the stigma. I mean, any kind of social value system, like you said, that men are supposed to be somehow strong and that getting help is weak, that those things would certainly play a role in people not getting therapy. Also, I think that historically there have been fears like, almost like if I went into therapy and I started talking about this, I would fall apart even more, that it would sort of like open the floodgates and I wouldn't be able to, which I think is such a misconception. And also trained therapists are aware of those fears and kind of help to titrate. We just make little steps at a time, go through little conversations, little topics at a time, and gain the strength and ability to delve into maybe some more deeper historical or traumatic issues, and certainly aren't going to leave someone sort of bleeding on the operating table if that was a fear.
We're joined by Carrie Krawick on today's edition of the Megacast. You can get in contact with the Birmingham Maple Clinic by visiting their website, birminghammaple.com. birminghammaple.com is their website for more information. And Carrie, among men, we know that across the board, there's some generalities across humanity, not just men or women or other individuals about common mental health issues. But for men specifically, what are some of those more common mental health issues or mental illnesses that we do see prevalent among men when they do ultimately seek a diagnosis or seek care for their mental health?
Sure. Well, I mean, the three most common, of course, are going to be anxiety, depression, and alcohol dependence. I mean, those, and like you said, that would be the same for men or women, but certainly there are ways in which they manifest differently. So, I mean, if you are wondering if your spouse, partner, father, some male in your life is depressed, it may not look the same. It might not look like sadness per se. It might be increased irritability, increased sleep or decreased sleep, trouble falling asleep, trouble staying asleep. It could look like more alcohol or cannabis use concealing an underlying depression. Certainly things too like panic and anxiety. A high number of men do report feeling panic and anxiety, about certain places or, driving or crowds, especially stuff, since the pandemic, going into certain environments, but they may not be showing those things on the outside. Again, they might compensate by drinking more in those environments or by avoiding them altogether. And so being kind of bold and asking them directly if they're having those feelings, even though you might not see it, is something that you could really do to be of assistance.
As a therapist, Carrie, is there a difference in your approach or in what is taught throughout mental health care industry in terms of approaching mental health care and these sort of therapeutic discussions with men versus women?
I think success in therapy, the most important thing in therapy to have success is a successful relationship between the client and therapist, that there's sort of a good vibe and a good rapport. So it's really about a good fit and knowing yourself. I think one thing is, you may try therapy or try a certain person and say, hey, this person isn't working for me. And then not, instead of saying therapy doesn't work altogether, it's perhaps try another person. So, or try another style, and I think, it doesn't really matter. Some men feel more comfortable, with a woman therapist. Some feel more comfortable with a man. Like you said, some feel more comfortable using Zoom and methods, audio, not necessarily, being face to face, whereas others like to meet in person. So it's case by case for the person. I think offering just that education in the space that like, it's okay. And, it just takes practice. If it's something you're uncomfortable or unfamiliar with, would perhaps be maybe the difference.
We're joined by Carrie Kruewick on today's edition of the Megacast, our weekly mental health talk with Carrie. You can get in contact with her and the team at the Birmingham Maple Clinic by visiting their website, birminghammaple.com. And you can also call them 248-646-6659, 248-646-6659 for more information. And we know that the stigma on mental health has been reduced ever so slightly over the last few years. And that also includes men's mental health, as we're in November, or month of November, men's mental health becoming much more of a focus in this month of the year, or being increased focused in this month of the year. But in terms of getting started, it's one thing to get a man or as a man to go to therapy and begin to address your mental health. But what suggestions do you have for these individuals that are doing this for the first time, maybe even are a little bit reluctant to do so, to have those sort of open conversations and explore that relationship with their therapist, and whether or not that is going to be something fruitful for them as they're working through their mental health, but also to make sure that they're putting forth an effort that will make this worthwhile and hopefully enact some change and some help for them?
So, you had touched on this before, but like the men that are at the highest risk for suicide are older men, and they're perhaps the most isolated, and maybe have access to lethal means to take their own life, and are the least likely to feel comfortable talking about these things. So again, really offering the education, if you do know of someone, care about someone who is isolated, just offering normalcy to these conversations, either by by revealing your own experiences or offering some education of just what you know, that, we are, as human beings, you and I have talked about this so many times, we are equipped to handle stress. We are equipped to handle difficult things. What makes it dangerous is when it's prolonged and within the absence of other supportive people. So when we can reach out to someone, we can actually reduce our stress and theirs, which is sort of good for everybody. And it's through those connections that people really find relief and healing.
We're joined by Carrie Krewick on today's edition of the MegaCast, our weekly mental health talk with Carrie. You can get in contact with her as well as the entire team at the Birmingham Maple Clinic at birminghammaple.com, as well as 248-646-6659. You can also send them an email for more informational purposes at info@birminghammaple.com, info@birminghammaple.com for more information. And when someone goes to therapy for the first time, Carrie, how do you as a therapist then address easing them into these conversations, especially if they're new to it, and especially if they seem, like is the case with so many men when they're going to therapy for the first time, to be a little bit reluctant or maybe even a little bit closed off and not having those conversations?
Absolutely. I think one thing to expect is really just getting to know each other. And of course, getting to know anyone is little bits of information at the time. In the beginning, you might just want to know about sort of their routines and their daily life and the things they sort of experience. And then you start to want to learn more about their history, their past relationships, how they grew up, and that these are just almost like the story of their life. You're just going to be learning little bits of it at a time. And certainly, therapists do to try to connect to different parts of the story if they're familiar with certain things or may ask questions about things they don't know more about. They're not trying to hurt or harm you, just trying to get to know you and get to know the things that have impacted your life in the past and the present.
Well, Carrie, we appreciate you joining us, talking to us more about men's mental health, as we definitely encourage men to seek that help if they're in need of it, or even if they're not, and they just it can be a very therapeutic, and two, you can learn a lot about your own behavior and where you are at in terms of your mental health. And just like any other checkup you get medically, it's good to also check in on your mental health as well. And so we encourage men during this month of November to address their mental health with a professional if they're in need, or even if they're not. Carrie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
birminghammaple.com is the website for more information. You can also call them 248-646-6659 and send them your questions, info@birminghammaple.com. We'll take a break on the MegaCast. The fall season is starting to actually seem like fall as we get closer to the weekend and some cooler weather ahead here in the state of Michigan. With that, we'll look forward to the remainder of the fall season, the holidays, with so much going on all across the state of Michigan, and why you should start right now thinking about planning your trips across the Great Lakes state for the spring and the summer. Odie McKinley joins us next from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation on the MegaCast.
Can I ask you a question? Why do you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
I don't like getting sick. The virus will die. It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer. Because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine to keep safe and strong. Be happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine. I'm feeling good.
Let's savor these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu. Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live local daily TV, radio, and streaming show looking into all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Learn more about our program by visiting civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you'll find more information on all of our partnering stations across the state, including My Michigan TV, streaming live on mymytv.com, and find all of our full shows and each individual interview on demand. So if you're tuning in just now and you only have a little bit of time, miss the rest of our show, or you got to leave, got to go, you got to tune out right now, you can always find us online, civiccentertv.com/megacast. Well, we are in fall. May not seem that way. May not seem that we are in the fall season, as it feels very much like summer, sans the humidity outside, but that's coming to an end very soon, and it will feel like fall, at least for a couple weeks, hopefully, before the winter starts coming in here in Michigan. So let's bring in Odie McKinley from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation to talk about some of the fun things left to do here in the state of Michigan. Well, we got a little bit of warmth left this weekend, and then as we head into the holiday season over the next few weeks here in the state of Michigan. Odie, thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely, Tyler. Good morning, and how you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I too am excited for fall, and we're kind of in the throes of it, and just looking for the pearly, beautiful days that we still get this time of year.
Yeah, going to be getting a little bit chillier. Not going to be having these nice temperate high 60s and 70-degree weather days much longer. But while we still have them through the weekend, at least, what are some great last-minute ideas people can do to soak in a little bit more of Michigan summer while the landscape out there is Michigan fall? If they're looking for some fun this weekend.
Well, Tyler, in Michigan this time of year, you never know what the weather's going to do from day to day. So short-term planning is at its finest right now. But if we do have great days, it's still a perfect time to get out and spend time with friends and family, hiking many of the metro parks in the area. Biking is certainly still a great opportunity to get out and enjoy the outdoors. But if the weather kind of turns, then maybe there's an opportunity for you to take the family on some historical places or tours or museums in the area. If you want to stay close in Detroit, you've got the Museum of Temporary Art, Motown Museum, Hitsville, USA is a must. But the DIA, Detroit Institute of Arts, the Detroit Children's Museum, and the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. Great opportunities for educational, experiential activities if the weather out there is not too great.
Yeah, and you can always explore so much in the city. You can take a day out of it and go, whether it's in a city like Detroit, certainly Grand Rapids, another great place to go, Lansing and other cities of moderate and smaller size all across the state
Absolutely.
of Michigan. Fun things to do during the fall season and also when the weather is nice like it is right now. Now, as we talk about the fall weather and how nice it's been outside, we know that over our shoulder, winter is creeping in, and pretty soon it's going to be time to put some plans together for the colder season, or at least enact those plans here in Michigan. As we approach the winter season, we're expecting maybe a little bit harsher of a winter, but maybe even a little bit shorter of a winter, considering we've had so much summer weather persisting late into the fall season. Odie, what should people be doing right now if they're looking to plan some fun winter activities as we get into the later portion of November, and certainly as we enter December and the early parts of 2023.
Yeah, well, for the outdoor enthusiast, a harsh winter is music to our ears. For those that love to alpine or cross-country ski, snowshoe, fat tire bike in the winter, the rumor on the street is it's going to be a great winter, and that's fantastic. With that, we recommend to make sure that people are making reservations, certainly during the holiday weekends of President's, MLK, Christmas, high travel times, just to make sure that the experience and memories you're hoping to make are able to come to fruition, and reservations are available. Northern Michigan, there's a wealth of resorts that are open that have full family activities, from indoor water slides to tubing, certainly fine dining across the state. We all know that Michigan is a winter wonderland for those that enjoy winter, and so we recommend making reservations and supporting the small businesses across this great state.
More information, of course, can be found on michigan.org. Ideas and certainly tons of different experiences for all 4 seasons and in all regions of the state of Michigan. Your trip begins at michigan.org. We're joined by Odie McKinley from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation on today's edition of the Megacast. Odie, as we look forward to winter, but also as we look forward to the spring and the summer seasons, this is a great time for people to start making those plans and start putting those plans into place, especially when we get into the spring and certainly into the summer of 2023. It's always busy across the state of Michigan, especially in those landmark tourist locations. So why should people be thinking about those later seasons of the year right now and making those plans when it's only November for June, July, and August of next year?
Well, it's tough for people to start thinking about planning for spring and summer of 2023 when they're still looking and planning holiday events and shopping and winter activities. But again, if next summer is if the last summer has been any indication of what next summer is going to be like, tourism is back. Regional, in-state, and the typical tourist destinations are busy, have been proven to be busy, and that's great for the small businesses in those communities. A couple different things to think about next year when looking at your plan is maybe head to michigan.org, Hidden Gems, to learn about different parts of the state that you may not typically think of as tourism destinations. There are cities all across the state, small towns, larger towns, that are fantastic destinations along the eastern coast of Michigan, certainly all over the UP. But again, making reservations in advance and putting a little forward thinking into your travel planning is always going to ensure that you get to do what you want to do, where you want to do it, when you want to do it. So, just look at camping. Reserving campsites at privately owned or Michigan state campgrounds was a challenge this year. There were a very, very busy season for camping. So those that do camp, again, last year we learned our lesson that a little more advanced planning is necessary. And with the Michigan State campgrounds, we know that you can make reservations 6 months in advance, starting at 8 a.m. that day of, I believe. So look at your calendar and start deciding what weekends you want to go camping, and then back it out 6 months so you can ensure that you're making the reservations that you need and getting the sites that you want.
Yeah, Michigan.org, a great resource for travel ideas all across the state of Michigan. There's guides for all seasons, for all different kinds of activities. It really is such a rich resource for all things about the state of Michigan. Odie, you talk about all these different locations that are historical landmarks, that are landscape landmarks as well, that maybe aren't those major tourist destinations you think of when you think of the state of Michigan, but are really interesting to explore and will definitely catch the eye of people if they just see that information. So give us a little bit of insight on just how many of the resources that the Michigan Economic Development Corporation provides for tourism and travel in the state of Michigan, especially through Michigan.org, the Pure Michigan website, which they oversee.
Yeah, so the Michigan Economic Development Corporation is really the lead marketing arm and advocate for the state of Michigan. And just to simply to kind of break that down, let's say there's three legs of the stool: business development, community development, and travel Michigan. And so all three of those things are incredibly important because communities need business, business needs people, and people want communities. And so that ongoing wheel of economic development is really what helps drive the overall economic health of the state. And tourism clearly is a very important variable in that. So the Travel Michigan arm of the MEDC is what really is tasked with bringing tourism and visitors to the state. People are very familiar with the Pure Michigan advertising campaign, but the organization that runs that is actually Travel Michigan. And again, we just work on behalf of the citizens of Michigan, trying to increase travel across the state to bring visitor spend to businesses, small businesses, restaurants, diners, gas stations, whatever it is, into these different corners of the state. And really highlight the state, show people how amazing the state is. No matter where you go in the state, there's just wonderful, wonderful opportunities to explore different communities of different sizes. And I just strongly recommend people this winter, this spring, this summer, try something different. Push your comfort zone a little and go to an area that you haven't done. Spend a little time on Michigan.org, build out an itinerary. There are itineraries already built for different regions of the state at Michigan.org. But it's a great time to get out, learn something new about the state. And maybe in the benefit of that is you're staying away from maybe some of the more crowded areas of the state but during those high travel times. And again, I can't say this enough, but tourism just doesn't happen up north. Spending time in Grand Rapids, in Detroit, are wonderful opportunities for learning experiences, to see what's happening in these communities, maybe change the perception of some folks of what these urban areas have become, because they are just incredible destinations. So don't always think that you need to look north to plan your vacation, regardless of the season. So it's a pretty neat time to be in a pretty cool state.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great state for exploring different sorts of environments, different sorts of landscapes, all different kinds of activities. And one of the few places in the U.S. and really around the world you can really experience all four seasons in a versatile way. Odie, thank you so much for joining us.
Tyler, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for the time, and I hope you have a fantastic what's left of the fall, and enjoy this coming weekend.
Yes, you as well, Odie. Always appreciate it. Michigan.org for more information. And as Odie said, to plan those itineraries and look forward to all the upcoming seasons here in the state of Michigan. Get to planning right now and even to executing on some of those plans for the winter, the spring, and the summer here in Michigan, as well as the remainder of this fall. We'll take a break on the Megacast. On the other side, from travel and tourism to education, we'll be joined by the executive director of the Michigan Association of Superintendents and Administrators to talk about how now on the other side of the bulk of the COVID-19 pandemic for our schools, testing numbers suggesting some major impacts of COVID-19, particularly in mathematics and reading. How is that being addressed at the school district level, and does the organization suggest that superintendents and administrators work on retaining and improving staffing in our school districts here in Michigan? Dr. Tina Kerr joins me next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Let's whoop it up for these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the cheering going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Take a look back in time and recollect local history at this month's Sylvan Story presentation. Learn about Sylvan Lake's illustrious past from the lovely Helen Jane Peters, as she discusses everything she can about Whitfield School's teacher and principal, Mr. Glenn Husted, and the letters he'd write to soldiers fighting in World War II. Sylvan Story. Drop by at 6:30 p.m. Thursday, November 10th at the Sylvan Lake Community Center.
Can I ask you a question? Why do you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
I don't like getting sick. The virus will die. It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer. Because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine to keep safe and strong. Be like happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine. I'm feeling good.
Let's savor these moments. Made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live local daily TV, radio, and streaming show looking into all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Of course, you can learn more about the program, find all of our different partnering TV and radio stations in your local area and where we stream online all across the Great Lakes state and around the world on civiccentertv.com/megacast. Lastly, today we'll be talking about education here in the state of Michigan. Certainly the COVID-19 pandemic had a number of impacts in the classroom. But now as schools are fully back in session, those impacts are starting to be felt and starting to really be seen empirically in the data received from testing scores from pre-pandemic in 2019 all the way through to the present in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic on our schools. Joining us now to talk about that and the ways that that's being addressed, that those results are being addressed in our schools by superintendents and administrators, is the executive director of the Michigan Association of Superintendents and Administrators, Tina Kerr, on the Megacast with us today. Dr. Kerr, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good to have you with us. Of course, we know that COVID-19 has had a major impact on schools across the U.S. and across the nation. We've talked in the past about the disparities in some of those effects from those issues on schools and in lower income areas, but across the state, some very staggering numbers. We just last week had discussed on this program and in our headline segment an article from Isabel Lohman and Mike Wilkinson at Bridge, Michigan, about the recent release of NAEP numbers, or National Assessment of Educational Progress numbers, from 2019 through this year, that show that Michigan's test scores, in particular in reading and math, fell to their lowest scores in over 30 years. That's quite a staggering number, and certainly you think about the impacts of the varying changes in the school systems over the course of the pandemic as being a primary culprit for all that. So let's start with where teachers and with where administrators are at this moment in time, as we're about in the middle of the school year, approaching the middle of the school year here in the state of Michigan, well into it, all our schools back fully in person, with some, of course, still having some other options as well for students and families that would prefer not to be in that in-person classroom. But by and large, where are our schools at in terms of getting back into the fold of things and really bringing these classrooms back to a more traditional in-person learning environment, but also adjusting for what they've learned over the last couple of years?
Sure. Thanks, Tyler. Well, all our schools started this fall with the intent to come back face-to-face and in person. But as you said, some of our districts found that some students did learn effectively with a virtual option. So you're seeing some hybrid opportunities in districts, but for the most part, our schools began the school year back in person, still trying to keep in mind those safety precautions, because obviously COVID is still lurking around. But certainly, I think that there was a new optimism and hope for the start of this school year.
Yeah, and that optimism and hope, a lot of that also comes from where we were at with our learning and with our education system here in the state of Michigan pre-pandemic. We talk about those NAEP numbers and some of those staggering falls and those numbers over the last 3 years between 2019 and 2022. But before that, in the 3 years prior, Michigan showed considerable improvement in those NAEP testing scores compared to the rest of the nation too. So there was something that was really positive going on in our classrooms pre-pandemic that hopefully is going to be coming back and continues to be coming back and having an effect as we go forward. On the administrative level, what do you do as a superintendent or as an administrator, particularly as you're looking at the controversies of learning loss and certainly these numbers from these testing institutions that help to kind of be a little bit of a guidepost throughout the year and year to year in terms of sort of bridging those gaps while you're also continuing on with this learning at a normal rate?
There's kind of three big, I think I'd call them buckets that administrators are working through. The first of which is just academic recovery strategies. I don't like to call it learning loss. We like to call it delayed learning because the pandemic did delay the learning that was occurring in classrooms due to the virtual options or other mitigating circumstances. The second piece is the needed legislative action. And we as an association are very focused on that. Then I would say the third part is really the reality of what we're dealing with in regards to the educator shortage in our state. That certainly has had a dramatic impact, especially when you talk about our scores improving previous to the pandemic. As we saw the pandemic come, we did see a decline again in our qualified educators that we had supporting our students. So we're going to focus on how do we work on those three things to help increase student learning and recover from this delayed learning that occurred during the pandemic.
Is that something that you and that other superintendents across the state of Michigan that are associated with MASA believe it can be done in a rather expedient manner? Because on the one hand, you're trying to make up for some of that delayed learning that occurred as a result of the constraints of the pandemic, whether it be virtual learning or outside circumstances and concerns that were faced not only here in Michigan, but across the country and across the world. But at the same time, not necessarily rushing to play catch up on this education at the same time, which can also have a significant effect on the kids' education and the quality of their learning.
Sure. We're kidding ourselves to think that this might happen overnight. It certainly won't. It is going to take a long period of time. And some of the things that we're looking at are going to need time to actually show their impact. The one thing I will say that's been in our favor as we think about these recovery strategies, a lot of our districts, thanks to us receiving $6 billion in federal funding to help students and staff recover from the pandemic, a lot of those funds are being used for investment in high intense tutoring programs. We're seeing extended summer schools, which usually helped us deal with summer school loss, but now can also help us move forward with the delayed learning that happened during the pandemic. And then we're seeing a lot of districts that are creating their own grow your own programs. We had another $12 million that was invested in creating these programs to get parapros that may want to be classroom teachers and moving people through the ranks quicker, but with a high quality education so that, again, as you said, we don't want to do anything to set us back academically. We are constantly trying to move forward and give the supports that we need in the classroom.
We're joined by Dr. Tina Kerr. She is the Executive Director of the Michigan Association of Superintendents and Administrators, or MASA, joining us on today's edition of the Megacast. You can learn more information about MASA as well as find some of the resources, advocacy, and upcoming events as well by going to their website, gomasa.org, GOMASA.org for more information, GOMASA or gomasa.org for more information. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier. It's important that we circle back to this, Dr. Kerr, as you're considering all these different mitigation efforts and initiatives in order to bridge some of those gaps in the delayed learning in our classrooms. I would imagine it's that much tougher to do that in a school district that's in a lower income area, a higher poverty area that already had been previously, before the pandemic, suffering for resources from the state, from the federal government as well to provide some of these services. Of course, you got a lot of the federal funding that came through the schools as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as from the state, certainly going to be helpful in that regard. But what are organizations like yours doing to help those school districts that are in areas of most need academically and from a resources standpoint, even pre-pandemic, to bridge some of these gaps when they do have significantly fewer resources than those school districts and those students in more affluent areas?
I will say I agree with you, Tyler, that has been ongoing when we talk about resources. We have long been advocates for leveling the playing field as far as financially for students. In this past summer's unprecedented education budget, you saw funding start to go to those subgroups that needed more attention and needed more resources, such as our ELL, our high poverty areas, our special education, et cetera. So I do feel like we've made significant gains to have the funding follow the needs of the child in those districts. But as an association, certainly one of the things we continue to do is by servicing over 95% of the superintendents in Michigan, we are always looking for ways to ensure that that learning that occurs at the association level for the superintendents is directly has an impact in their particular district setting, whether it be small rural or urban suburban. We want to try and make sure our professional development opportunities meet them where their needs are.
And we're joined by Dr. Tina Kerr, the Executive Director of the Michigan Association of Superintendents and Administrators, on today's edition of the MegaCast. You can find more information on all of their work by visiting gomasa.org, gomasa.org, for more information, including their partners, some advocacy work, resources on COVID-19, job postings across the state, workshops, and more. gomasa.org, as well as a calendar for their upcoming events as well. Dr. Kerr, in terms of the educator's standpoint, of course, your organization working with superintendents and administrators, but under them in the chain of command, are those people on the front lines in our classroom each and every day, teaching our kids and helping to enact these different plans and different initiatives to bridge those gaps in the delayed learning all across the state of Michigan? So what more needs to be done at the administrative level? Or are you suggesting for administrators and certainly superintendents, to attract new talent right here in the state of Michigan, but also to retain those excellent members of their staff and their faculty in their facilities and keep them in the industry, where we've seen over the past few years many very talented employees and educators across the state, due to the stresses of that job, the constraints of that job, and the situation that we're in educationally here in Michigan and across the country, have left the profession altogether.
That's absolutely correct. And there's a lot of factors that obviously added to that. What we're trying to do is support our administrators as they work to alleviate the stress that educators are under. We talked about students' health and well-being during the pandemic, but just as important has been the staff and the educators, as you said, on the front lines, their health and well-being. You're seeing a lot of districts that are trying to implement more on-site wellness programs, trying to ensure that their staff have safe outlets to go and have conversations. But we're also seeing, again, with the educator shortages plaguing our state and the nation, we're having to look at other opportunities, how to attract people to the profession. Quality, competitive wage, certainly, as you said, those supports that are in place to ensure that they have a positive culture and can have a positive impact in the classroom. We've seen our governor and our legislature are certainly trying to put money to attract more people to the profession, but it's also up to each community to make a difference in those schools. And while the administrators can control so much, it's certainly about, does a teacher come to a district or a community and do they feel like they're at home? And a lot of the stresses that have happened that we've seen politically on a national level have certainly trickled down into the communities in Michigan. So again, it's imperative that we all work together to ensure that our educators in our schools feel safe, feel valued, feel protected, and that they can earn a decent living to support the students that are in their classrooms.
Teaching, educating is a partnership between those educators and the families, as well as the students, administrators, and superintendents as well. It's all one big partnership at the community level. So community involvement always going to be critical in all these matters, especially with the challenges we face today. Dr. Kerr, thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate it. Thank you and have a great day.
You as well. That is going to do it for this Thursday edition of the Megacast. We'll return very soon with a new episode.